How do you put time on people's lives that are stuck in traffic? They dread the 401, driving down the 401.
Taking traffic underground to ease highway gridlock. Can the government dig its way out of a congestion crisis?
Tonight, the Premier's pitch to build a tunnel underneath the 401. Good evening. It is Canada's busiest highway, but when it doesn't move, it can also be the most frustrating.
Today, the Premier offered up a bold plan, and it's certainly generating a lot of reaction. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live with the story. Siobhan.
Michelle, those reactions are all over the place, from dismissing this as a fantasy to saying it's a turning point in battling congestion. The Premier says it's about having vision for the future, but that future could be decades and tens of billions of dollars away. It's the country's busiest highway, the wide expanse of the 401. As the population grows, so is congestion frustration. So the Premier wants to dig deep, tunneling under the 401.
From Brampton to Mississauga all the way out to Scarborough and Markham.
The government has started an internal study of a subterranean route for cars and transit.
It will be one of the world's longest tunnels.
It could be more than 50 kilometers. Doug Ford won't ballpark a price tag, but looking around the globe, think tens of billions of dollars.
The feasibility study will come in, and we'll be transparent. But I'll tell you one thing, we're getting this tunnel built.
While opposition leaders agree congestion is a serious problem, causing serious hits to the economy.
This is not a serious proposal. This is not a serious premier. It is a silly thought from a government that has run out of ideas.
I really think that this is a pipe dream of an idea, and that the better solution would be to leverage existing assets.
Like the tolled Highway 407, sold by the province to a private firm in 1999.
Pay tolls for truckers. Build homes people can afford in the communities they love so you have to commute so far. Invest in expanding transit options.
A tunnel under the 401 would dwarf Boston's infamous Big Dig.
25 years after the idea was hatched, the dig will finally end. But construction was a nightmare.
A fate Ford insists the government can escape.
They had old wires and pipes that they didn't realize they were hitting frost underneath. That's not going to happen here.
Calling Ontario tunneling experts.
This may be good in an election campaign, but this is not a real solution. I don't see this moving forward.
This expert says global cities have been backing off using boring machines to add capacity.
These have been catastrophically expensive. The risk is huge. The likelihood of cost overruns and delays is massive, but also it won't actually solve the problem.
With more cars rolling in as soon as there are more lanes to carry them. To deal with cost overruns from the Big Dig, the state of Massachusetts leaned on road tolls to make up the difference, something that Doug Ford has said emphatically he will not do. Reporting live, I'm Siobhan Morris. Raheem, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Still ahead, amid growing pressure over a controversial student field trip and an investigation ordered by the Education Minister, the Toronto District School Board is holding a special meeting tonight. We'll take you there in moments.
But first, we turn to more evidence of why the dream of a new home is out of reach for so many families.
A new report reveals fees, taxes, and slow approvals pose major threats to new housing developments in the GTA. Let's bring in CTV Sean Leathong, who joins us live with the story. Sean.
Well, Raheem and Michelle, when interest rates started to go up just about 2 years ago, that's when the housing market seemed to really hit a breaking point. Since that time, much has been made of the increasing demand for houses, but this new report focuses on the idea of fees, particularly municipal fees, and how that's creating conditions where some builders say they just won't build. The housing crisis is about to fall off a cliff. This, according to a new study that looks at the cost of building new homes in 2024.
If you think we're having a housing crisis now or in the past, I don't think people appreciate what's going to happen until you see the numbers in 2027, 2028.
Jared Mankus is Senior VP at Mankus Developments. They build high-rises in the GTA, and he says that new builds are virtually stopping.
There's close to 90,000 units in the GTA under construction. By 2027, that number will be down to about 5,000 under construction. So there's no new people starting because the costs are too great and the buyers aren't there to buy right now.
According to a report commissioned by the Building Industry and Development Association, new home builds are not keeping up with population growth, and municipal fees are squeezing new developments. With the average municipal cost to build at $122,000 per unit for a high-rise and $165,000 per unit for low-rise, costs that have gone way up for most cities in the past decade.
Costs have doubled, tripled, and in one case gone up as much as 600%.
When provincial and federal taxes and fees are added in, the numbers are staggering.
We're talking $355,000 added to the cost of a single-family home, and approximately $245,000 to the cost of a condominium.
On top of fees, the time to get a project approved is sitting at 20.3 months in the GTA, adding anywhere between $43,000 to $90,000 per unit in carrying costs.
Now, in terms of development charges, can we do more? Perhaps, but we need the funds to maintain the subway, maintain the roads.
The province of Ontario has pledged to build 1.5 million homes by 2031, while the federal government has set high immigration targets. Developers are saying that unless something changes drastically, housing will continue to fall farther behind. And many of the developers we've spoken with say these development costs are actually fixed costs. They're not tied to the value of the property, so they've been brought up by cities to bring in more cash. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. I'll send it back inside.
Thank you, Sean. More than 500,000 Americans live north of the border, but how many actually exercise their right to vote? The push to get people to cast their ballot in Canada for the upcoming U.S. election.
But first, let's take a live look outside. The cloud cover we saw to begin the day has been moving out, and there were even some moments where the sun popped out. Jessica Smith joins us with a look at the current conditions. Jess, I'd say conditions have improved throughout the day.
The slow but steady return to the sunshine, Raheem, as we head throughout the end of our day today and in towards the end of the week. Unsettled early on this morning, still a little unsettled in parts of Ontario, but for the most part, the Golden Horseshoe, the GTA, the downtown core, relatively clear of the rain. Still some cloud cover, as Raheem mentioned, but we are seeing that start to break apart. Temperature-wise, it's pretty mild out there. We're sitting kind of in that low 20 range, feeling into the upper 20s. It's still quite humid as we head in towards the evening. Now, temperature-wise, through the islands and Pearson, kind of between 22 and 24, but it feels 29, 30, and tonight we're sitting at 17. There's still the chance of maybe a light passing shower, but the bulk of that heavy stuff is gone. Coming up, your full forecast right now. Back over to Raheem and Michelle.
Thanks, Jess. The Toronto District School Board is holding a special meeting tonight to discuss a controversial field trip where students ended up at a protest.
Some parents say they were misled about the nature of the excursion, saying that it crossed the line into activism. CTV's Mike Walker is live at the TDSB headquarters tonight with the latest on this story. Mike.
Well, this will be the first time trustees will be discussing that field trip to the protest that was highlighting challenges in the First Nations community, but ended up seeing some students participating in pro-Palestinian slogans chanted. This as the Education Minister has ordered an investigation into the matter. The Toronto District School Board has come under fire for a field trip to a Grassy Narrows protest, raising awareness about decades of mercury poisoning at the First Nation community after video surfaced on social media showing some students actively participating in which pro-Palestinian slogans were shouted, a matter trustees will review at a special meeting tonight.
Ideally, we'd like to hear an apology from trustees tonight.
Tamara Gottlieb is with the Jewish Educators and Families Association of Canada and says many parents were misled about how the field trip was originally presented.
Trustee Pei has introduced 3 or 4 motions to try to keep geopolitics out of the classroom, and each and every time these motions have been voted down, enough is enough. It's time that trustees understand that this is the work that needs to be done, and they've dropped the ball.
The TDSB has issued an apology and launched an investigation stating students should not participate in protests. Ontario's Education Minister is ordering a separate investigation into the field trip. Jill Dunlop writing in a statement, it's clear that the TDSB has failed to take swift and decisive action on this matter, adding that those responsible should be held accountable. The ministry's investigation welcomed by concerned parents and community groups who rallied on the school board's doorstep last night.
And I hope that she suspends everybody at the top while they're holding the investigation.
The Premier has blasted the school board on the matter several times this week.
I think it's disgraceful. You're trying to indoctrinate our kids.
vowing his government will get to the bottom of what happened.
We can't have our kids going to any protest. It doesn't matter what type of protest it is. They should be in school learning math and arithmetic, spelling.
But the elementary teachers of Toronto firing back, accusing the Premier of diverting attention away from the Grassy Narrows issue. A statement reads in part, "This was a teachable moment and Doug Ford failed the test. Instead of leadership, he's shown he will continue to ignore the call of Grassy Narrows for justice and throw our schools, teachers, and our communities who need help the most under the bus." For its part, the TDSB is vowing to review its field trip procedures. The board says it will fully cooperate with the ministry's investigation.
The TDSB notes that its investigation will take some time to complete, but did note if it concludes that policies and procedures were not followed, it will take disciplinary action. As for tonight's special meeting, it's expected to get underway just under an hour from now. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Raheem, back to you.
Thanks, Mike. A woman was seriously injured after she was struck by a vehicle in Mississauga. It happened around 5 o'clock this morning in the area of Burnhamthorpe and Cawthra. Peel paramedics say the woman was rushed to hospital in critical condition. Police say the driver involved remained at the scene.
Police in Hamilton are looking for additional suspects believed to be involved in a series of ambush-style robberies involving an LGBTQ dating app. Investigators have already arrested several individuals but are looking to identify additional suspects. Police say several victims were lured through Grindr only to be ambushed and extorted by the suspects who had allegedly misrepresented themselves on the platform. Police are hoping someone from the public can help identify them.
A Toronto police officer accused of assault took the stand in his own defense in Brampton today. He's accused of assaulting a young man who later died following a Kijiji deal gone bad. CTV's John Musselman reports.
Toronto Police Constable Calvin Au took the stand in his own defense today. He denied using excessive force when he brought 19-year-old Chad Facey to the ground shortly after Facey sold a fake Apple Watch to Au's friend and fellow Toronto police officer Gurmak Benning. It happened back in April 2021. Both Toronto cops were off duty at the time. Au told the court he took Facey down after a brief pursuit. "I'm thinking if he takes off, I don't have the energy to catch him. I decided to secure Facey on the ground." Defense lawyer Peter Browdy, how much force did you use? A reasonable amount of force, like a football tackle. Did you see his face hit the ground? No, I did not see Facey's head or face hit the ground. The court heard that Constable Au outweighed Facey by more than 50 pounds when this happened. Facey's family says he showed obvious signs of medical distress when he returned home later that afternoon. His sister testified her brother was in and out of consciousness and he had a large bump on his forehead. He was taken to Brampton Civic Hospital. Facey died later that night. Under cross-examination by the Crown, Au testified he had no concerns that Facey was armed with any kind of weapon when he was chasing him through the Brampton neighborhood. They also got the $400 back from Facey when they caught up with him. The Crown suggested Au overreacted. Crown, both you and Benning were fooled by him. Constable Au, yes. I'm going to suggest you are angry that you got scanned. Constable Au, I don't agree. Constable Au has pleaded not guilty. The trial continues tomorrow. John Musselman, CTV News in Brampton.
In Ottawa, the Trudeau government survived this afternoon's vote on a Conservative non-confidence motion that could have resulted in an early election.
But there is a new threat to the minority Liberals, and it is one from one of the parties that supported them today. CTV's Rachel Aiello has the details.
This was the first, but not the last test of the Liberal minority this fall. The Conservative-led push to bring down the government was defeated, despite pressure from Pierre Poilievre to send Canadians to the polls.
He wants a climate change election. Let's have that election in the right time. Will he call it today?
The Bloc and NDP voted with the government, stating they still have confidence in Justin Trudeau. But before the vote was even called, Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet issued an ultimatum, giving the government until the end of October to help enact a pair of Bloc bills about pensions and supply management, or risk an election before the new year.
There's not so much room for discussion.
Wasting no time, the Conservatives are set to serve up another non-confidence motion on Thursday, a move the Liberals called lame parliamentary games.
But I think it shows the desperation of Mr. Poilievre.
The drama has seized Parliament Hill, but whether it could turn the dial on Canadians' desire for an election is another question.
You could see more votes starting to have an effect on Canadians where they're thinking more seriously about it. But the opposite side to that is there could be a tune-out factor.
Opposition motions have brought down governments before, and with more high-stake votes ahead, the path to staying in power is looking precarious for the Liberals. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
In the Middle East, 2 Canadians have been killed in Lebanon as the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah intensifies. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
This is the moment an airstrike hit the Lebanese town of Jiyah. An explosion followed by a massive ball of fire. Israeli strikes on targets inside Lebanon continued today as the death toll there also rose. Among those killed, Canadians Hussein and Dad Tabaja. Their son says the couple was trying to flee the south when their car was hit. Israel says it is not targeting civilians. It's going after Hezbollah. Still, the death toll so far includes nearly 150 women and children, according to the health ministry.
All of these precision strikes and targeted strikes that are happening, they're not precise and they're not targeted. They are killing many women and children.
Canadian Stephanie Muhaber lives just outside of Beirut. She has no plans to leave and is trying to do her part to help the thousands that have been displaced.
We are scared, but we're steadfast at the same time.
Some commercial flights are still available as people rush to leave the country, including one Canadian who was able to leave on Monday.
I feel survivor's guilt right now. I feel guilty for being out.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister is urging people to leave now, warning the situation becomes more complicated if the airport closes.
Let's all remember that the difference between 2006 and now is that the port of Beirut exploded a couple of years ago. And that also complicates the way an evacuation could happen.
This morning, Hezbollah fired a missile at Tel Aviv. It was intercepted but shows the group's capabilities, despite days of intense strikes.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister will meet with Lebanon's Prime Minister on Saturday in New York as world leaders continue to look for a diplomatic solution. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Here at home, people with loved ones in Lebanon are forced to watch, wait, and worry as the violence unfolds. CTV's Beth McDonnell reports.
They are worried that, the airport might be bombed or the roads. So that's another worry that, they are having and we are having.
In Toronto, it's been a difficult time for Abir Hashem, watching the Israeli airstrikes hit so close to the homes of her aunts and cousins in southern Lebanon. The impact of the blast shared in photos, all too close for any comfort.
Nerve-wracking, very upset, very nervous, don't know if my family will be okay. And we don't know if they are able to get out. And the people that can get out, I don't know if they are going to be safe. We don't know if they're going to be able to get any medical aid.
She says in the past few days, relatives received messages warning they're close to Hezbollah targets, urging them to leave or be killed. Not knowing if the communication was real, they stayed.
But then all of a sudden, they started hearing the bombings, and it got overnight really loud, and nobody could sleep. Everyone's shaking. So they text us in the morning, look what's happening. Broken windows in homes and shops, and olive trees burning, and the land, and fire. And it's just, you look at what I mean? Like, what's going on?
Her relatives are now some of the tens of thousands on the move, seeking shelter in schools and other buildings, not knowing if anywhere is safe.
I'm hearing from my brothers and sisters and my cousins that there are people related to us, people who are real estate agents or people who work at hospitals or people who actually a barber that I took my son in the summer to his place to get a haircut, that they died and they were murdered.
Paramount Fine Foods CEO Mohammed Faki is from southern Lebanon and was there just a few months ago. He's frustrated more isn't being done to stop the violence.
Some of the people that I'm hearing that they've been murdered are people that actually impacted my life and who I am. And I grew up looking at them and seeing them. So it makes you feel useless and powerless. My own nephew's wife just left a month ago. She just had a baby and she was happy to go there and show the baby to the family. And now she's stuck there. Well, now we're trying to look for tickets. Tickets are 5 times the prices. than before, and we're not going to be able to pull her out of Lebanon before next Monday.
I'm praying for peace. I'm praying that, these people would be left alone. These are innocent people.
As the airstrikes and anxiety continue, Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
At the United Nations, Ukraine's president urged world leaders to stand with his country.
I want peace for my people, real peace and just peace. And I'm asking for your support from all nations of the world. We do not divide the world. I ask the same of you, do not divide the world. Be united nations, and that will bring us peace.
Volodymyr Zelensky told the UN General Assembly there is no alternative to the peace formula he presented 2 years ago. It includes the expulsion of all Russian forces and accountability for war crimes. Zelensky says any other attempts to seek peace are efforts to achieve a lull instead of an end to the war. Ukrainian officials have rejected a Chinese and Brazilian peace plan, believing it would just buy Moscow time. Zelensky is expected to present a plan to U.S. President Joe Biden this week, outlining what Ukraine needs quickly from Western allies to win.
A U.S. Senate committee has concluded Secret Service failures prior to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump in July were foreseeable and preventable. The bipartisan investigation says there were a number of failures on almost every level. They included planning, security, and allocation of resources. Investigators found there was no clear chain of command among the Secret Service and other security agencies, and officials were operating on multiple separate radio channels, leading to miscommunications. Trump said today he will hold a rally on October 5th in Butler, Pennsylvania, the town where the assassination attempt took place.
The U.S. election is still weeks away, but excitement is building, including here on this side of the border.
American citizens in Canada are preparing to cast their ballots, knowing they too can play a role in the race for the White House. CTV's Scott Lightfoot reports.
Outside the U.S. consulate today, an effort to get U.S. citizens to vote in the upcoming November election.
Having the right to vote is a privilege, and not voting when you are able to is disrespecting everyone in the United States who's disenfranchised, and people around the world who are not able to vote for their government.
Some, like Stella King, have voted from abroad before.
Even though the United States has a lot of problems, the fact that it's a government by the people, for the people, is very valuable and very important.
For others, this will be their first time.
It's quite important. I think this year is an important vote. More than other years.
There are an estimated 600,000 eligible U.S. voters in Canada.
We're only 40 days outside of the election right now.
And officials here in Toronto held an information session to show interested Americans exactly how they can cast a ballot in the November 5th election, regardless of where in the U.S. they're from.
The tricky part is every state and locality has a different timeline. So we help people, and this is one of the reasons we're out here, we help people navigate that, make sure that they can get their ballot in time.
The act of voting by mail has become an issue in the current presidential campaign, but officials here say the system works. And given the fact that just 3% of eligible U.S. voters in Canada cast a ballot the last time around, they're hoping more will take advantage of it.
Mail-in voting is safe. The mail-in voting system that we use is the same one used by the U.S. military to help our soldiers vote while they're overseas. So they provide that ballot to us. It's in a sealed envelope. We put it in a sealed container, and then we bring it to the U.S. Postal Service in New York and make sure it's mailed safely to their locality.
Any U.S. citizen of voting age who lives outside of the country has the right to vote, regardless of if they're registered to vote or have never voted before or have been out of the U.S. for a long period of time. But just how many will exercise that right won't be known until after the election.
When you do have the ability to vote, I think that it's very important that you do, because it's a privilege.
Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
Florida is bracing for the arrival of Helene, which strengthened into a hurricane today.
Being from South Florida, I'm not really nervous. We literally decided to evacuate last minute, but I hope that it doesn't really tear Tallahassee like it did last time. I hope when we come back, our house is still the same as it was as we left it.
Preparations are underway with the storm expected to make landfall as a major hurricane on Florida's northwestern coast as soon as late tomorrow. It has prompted evacuations and school closures, and the Tampa airport is suspending operations early Thursday. Elsewhere, more than 30 counties in southern Georgia are under a hurricane warning. Helene is forecast to move quickly northward after hitting Florida.
Back here in Canada, the number of people in this country continues to grow. StatsCan estimates there were nearly 41.3 million people living in Canada on July 1st. That means more than 250,000 people were added in the second quarter of the year. It represents a growth of 0.6%. The increase in population was almost entirely due to international migration.
Coming up on CTV News in Ottawa, Senators Star's Land Rover reportedly gets swiped, just the latest pro hockey player to lose his wheels to auto theft plaguing the province.
And I'm Pat Foran, coming up on Consumer Alert. Many of us shop online, and sometimes what we buy just isn't quite right. But what happens if you send a package back and it goes missing? A woman says she is out more than $2,500 after an iPad disappeared. I love that story. That's just ahead.
And the hot spot today along that eastern shoreline of Georgian Bay. And as we step in towards the end of the week, that warmth will kind of spread to everybody. And the sunshine does return after a gloomy start to the week. Coming up, we'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. And stay with us. We have another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
If you shop online, you may worry when your package arrives, it could be swiped off your porch before you get a chance to even bring it in.
Another concern is shipping back a parcel that wasn't quite right and hoping it gets to where it's supposed to go. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Raheem and Michelle. A woman bought an iPad online and then decided to send it back for an upgraded model. She says she used the return label that was provided and the recommended courier company, but the package is missing and she's out more than $2,500.
I was in shock. I didn't know what to do.
Chris Power Arsenault of Collingwood purchased a new iPad with a keyboard in May of this year. She liked it but decided to upgrade to a different model and was told by Apple to get a refund to return the iPad. She went to a UPS store, printed off the return label and sent it back, but
a week went by. I phoned Apple. Apple told me they did not receive the iPad.
Concerned, Chris went back to the courier to find out where the package went.
I went back to the UPS store. They told me they sent it out. There was nothing else they can do.
Both Apple and UPS agreed to investigate and track down the iPad, but in the end, Chris said she was told the package was lost and there would be no refund. She says the missing iPad Pro cost her just over $2,500.
I need my money back. I have proof. I sent it out. I have proof that I have the labels, the tracking numbers.
Apple said it would look into the missing iPad. In a statement, UPS told CTV News, "We are aware of the situation. Our team is diligently working on the ongoing investigation to resolve this matter." When returning a package, ensure you have the correct return label on the outside. A copy of the label should also be included inside the package in case the outside one goes missing. Take photos of the item you're sending, get a tracking number, and keep your receipts. Chris is hopeful the missing iPad can still be recovered as it was purchased on her credit card and she still needs to pay for it.
I want my money back that's owed to me. I returned it. I deserve to have my money back.
And whenever you're buying or returning a high-value item online, you should take extra steps to see who is responsible if it goes missing. You might also be able to purchase insurance in case there's a problem. On your side.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
On your side, he's Pat Foran. Let's get to weather now. And you know what? We're entering the back half of the week, and with it comes some sunshine. We had some wet few days, and now you're starting to see those clouds part.
You're starting to see the clouds, but I think if you choose your wardrobe or what you're going to eat based on looking out the window, you might be deceived because it looks cooler than it is, Jess.
Listen, I prepare for all the weather all the time. It's the nature of my job, but it's also we're in that time of year where it's getting cool in the morning, it's hot in the afternoon, it's a little cool in the evening. Rain showers are kind of just a part of the forecast over the past few days, but the good news is we will see high pressure move back in, and we do round out the month of September in a pretty nice way. Temperature-wise, it's been not so bad out there as we made our way throughout the day, despite not seeing a ton of brilliant sunshine, and we're going to continue to see the warmth as we head in towards this evening. We are looking at the cloud cover continuing to disperse as we head through the overnight. Right now, we're sitting at 24. It feels like 31. Northern Ontario, pretty warm as well out through Red Lake and Thunder Bay. Now, as we step through the overnight, we don't lose any of that heat. We're still sitting around 17. We should be at 9 for this time of year, and we're nowhere near that. Still a southerly wind as we head through the overnight. Bancroft should be at 5. They'll be at they should be at 5. We'll sit at 13, and over towards Kingston, they should be at 7. They'll be at 17. So everybody holding on to a ton of that humidity as we head through the evening. Now into the day tomorrow, slightly closer to seasonal, but still dealing with a humidex value right across southern Ontario. That includes us here in the city, feeling into the mid-20s. The bulk of that low continues to push its way further east. Behind it, a much more stable air mass. We'll see some high pressure make its way in, and it's going to clear things out. We're not looking at a stretch of sunny days like we've had as of late, but we will kind of clear things up just a little. As we head in towards the rest of our evening, a few light clouds out there, some spotty showers still, areas just kind of northwest of Peterborough and through Aurora. But for us here in the city throughout the GTA, it's just a little cloudy. Sunshine into our Thursday morning that continues to clear out as high pressure really settles back in. And it's going to be a beautiful way to kind of round out the week. We hold on to sunshine into our Friday morning as well, but we will see a few clouds start to push their way in as we kind of round out the day and step in towards the start of our weekend. Now, temperature-wise, we're still above seasonal, nothing crazy, but it is going to be warmer than we should be really right through to the end of the month. Feeling into the mid-20s as we head through our Thursday, a mix of sun and cloud as we get in towards Friday. And then Saturday, Sunday, not a ton of sunshine out there, but at least we're holding on at a fairly seasonal daytime high. And the overnight lows kind of trend a little closer to where we should be. We step into Monday, Truth and Reconciliation Day. We have lots of sunshine out there. We'll sit at about 19 degrees, and then that's how we round out the month of September. We hold on to that sunshine and those above seasonal temps. As we head in towards the beginning of October on Tuesday, it happens so quickly every year. We're like, where'd the month go? September said, I'm out of here. But we are going to hold on to fairly seasonal weather. So we step into a brand new month in a really beautiful way. Raheem, I'll send things back over to you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks.
Children with developmental disabilities face many challenges, including malnourishment. We'll take you inside an innovative clinic that's ensuring kids don't fall between the cracks. We have details of a new comprehensive eating clinic at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital.
Eating can be one of the most challenging problems for children with neurodevelopmental disorders. CTV's Pauline Chan has more on how doctors and parents are trying to help make it easier.
So Baby Bell, sandwich, yogurt, bagel, drink.
I don't want that, Albert!
Despite his protest, Mom Gurpreet Valeri is actually really pleased with 5-year-old Max's progress at this special eating clinic at Holland Bloorview.
We're really excited because this September he's in senior kindergarten now, and he was able to take a lunch to school and 2 snacks, and most days it comes home and the box is empty.
Max's twin Mason is also making progress.
As you can see, he's taller than Max, he's bigger than Max, he's flourishing, he's doing really well.
Rob Valeri describes Mason's diagnosis of ARFID as life-changing. Both boys are on the autism spectrum and have also been diagnosed with avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, or ARFID. For Mason, the worst time was 1.5 years ago when he got his tonsils out.
So he was sick all the time, and he stopped eating even his puree.
ARFID is not the same as picky eating, and the treatment strategies are quite different.
We're talking less than 10 foods, and this could be because of significant sensory issues, significant lack of hunger cues, or fear of eating, such as fear of choking, for example. And it can lead to serious medical consequences.
The patients may have autism, cerebral palsy, or global developmental delay.
Sometimes called as a silent disability, and that's because there are not often visual cues for conditions such as this, and they may not be able to communicate the concerns that they have.
Strategies are tailored to each individual.
One of the goals for the family is to eat out together because they say food is such an important part of our society and culture.
So far, the restrictive eating clinic has seen some 35 children since opening 1 year ago, and while they're only treating internal referrals for now, they hope to share their expertise with other centers. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
It's been 6 years since a law was enacted raising awareness about concussions in amateur sports. It's named after Rowan Stringer, a 17-year-old Ottawa rugby player who died in 2013 from multiple concussions over a 6-day period. Today, her father spoke at Queen's Park.
Changing the culture of parents, getting them to realize that that next game it might not be as important as you think.
The province has released a report outlining Ontario's progress, addressing 21 recommendations to help protect young athletes. As of this year, those recommendations have now either been implemented or are in progress. Rowan's father now hopes the law will be emulated across the country.
Spending data during the Toronto International Film Festival suggests people are being more selective with their money. Moneris data shows the number of transactions during TIFF was up 31% compared to last year, yet total dollars spent decreased by 8%. Restaurant transactions were down 12%, while overall spending was down 22%. For other categories, such as jewelry or clothing stores, transactions increased 26%, but total volume decreased 15%.
Lady Gaga is set to release a companion album to the new Joker film.
You can do anything you want. You're Joker.
The album will be called Harlequin in reference to her Harley Quinn character she plays alongside Joaquin Phoenix in Joker Folie à Deux. In 2019, Gaga won an Oscar for the original song for Shallow, which she wrote and performed in the 2018 film A Star is Born. Harlequin will be released on Friday.
Canadian artist The Weeknd has set a new Spotify streaming record. The pop star from Scarborough now has 18 songs that have been streamed over 1 billion times on the platform, breaking a tie with Drake. After Hours, the title track from his 4th album, is the latest song to reach the milestone. His song Blinding Lights is the most listened to song on Spotify with nearly 4.5 billion streams.
After the break, workers at Walmart will soon be taking home a bigger paycheck. The retail giant is investing nearly $100 million in a plan to retain employees for the long term.
The feasibility study will come in, and we'll be transparent. But I'll tell you one thing, we're getting this tunnel built.
Updating our top stories, the Premier has introduced a plan to build a tunnel under the 401 to combat congestion. It would be for vehicles and transit and potentially stretch 50 kilometers. Critics are dismissing the idea as not a legitimate proposal.
If you think we're having a housing crisis now or in the past, I don't think people appreciate what's going to happen until you see the numbers in 2027, 2028.
A new study says new home builds are not keeping up with population growth, and municipal fees are squeezing new developments. The average per unit municipal cost for a high-rise build is $122,000 and $165,000 per unit for low-rise.
Ideally, we'd like to hear an apology from trustees tonight.
The Toronto District School Board is meeting tonight to discuss a field trip to a protest where pro-Palestinian slogans were shouted. Some students ended up participating. Some parents say they were misled about the nature of the trip. The TDSB is investigating, as is the ministry. The demonstration was held to raise awareness about mercury poisoning at the Grassy Narrows First Nations.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app.
Canadian and U.S. stocks slipped today, declining from yesterday's record highs. Andrew Bellabian in Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. It looked today like investors were searching for a reason to bid stocks higher. Shares turned slightly down, with Toronto and the U.S. S&P 500 losing about 0.1%. The Wall Street Journal pointed to an absence of catalyst to keep driving the markets higher. Over the past week, shares have been lifted to record highs by that big interest rate cut by the US Fed and stimulus measures in China. But pessimists point out that previous policies in Beijing have seen their effects fizzle out after a while. And heavy-handed policies in China are giving investors pause. The Journal says a prominent economist at a top think tank was detained and removed from his posts after he criticized leader Xi Jinping. On the markets, the Canadian dollar changed hands at 74.17 US cents, down 1/4 cent. West Texas Intermediate oil traded at $69.69 US a barrel, down $1.87. Western Canadian Select oil, by our latest fix, was at $57.29, up $1.23. And the TSX Composite ended at 23,905.88, down just over 46 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Walmart Canada is spending $92 million on pay increases for hourly retail and frontline associates. The new money is in addition to $53 million announced in July. The retailer says it has also prioritized investments in skills training and education offerings. Last week, Walmart-owned Sam's Club said it would raise hourly pay to $16 an hour for about 100,000 entry-level workers.
Ottawa Senators forward Claude Giroux is the latest NHL player to make headlines for having their high-end luxury car stolen. CTV national correspondent Judy Trinh reports.
Ottawa Senators forward Claude Giroux, known for his hot hands, is making headlines for his hot car. His Land Rover was stolen the night before. Giroux's wife posted a play-by-play on social media, tracking the thief actively driving, but they were unable to get a hold of Ottawa police until the next morning. Maybe this will get me into labor, she joked. Giroux's teammates see a marketing opportunity.
Let the fans pick which car you should buy next.
The top stolen vehicles in Canada are all high-end SUVs, and Range Rovers, like what Giroux drives, are the thieves' top pick. Every 5 minutes, a vehicle is stolen in Canada. Giroux is the latest professional hockey player to make news for losing his wheels.
Hi, I'm Sean Monahan.
The former Calgary Flames player found out he was being traded to Montreal after his car was stolen.
My vehicle was actually stolen, and I was on the phone with my insurance company, and my agent kept giving me a call, and finally answered, and I found out the news, and yeah, it changed my day from being a little bit upset to extremely excited.
But Toronto Maple Leaf star Mitch Marner had a much darker experience. In 2022, Marner was carjacked, forced to hand over keys to his Range Rover at gunpoint.
Let's not forget what is driving auto theft. It's organized crime. Stolen vehicles are the third largest source of funding for organized crime in Canada.
There are small signs of improvement. After February's national summit, the federal government announced more than $40 million to help border agents and police across the country combat auto theft. Since then, more than 1,200 vehicles have been recovered in shipping ports and rail yards. The Insurance Bureau of Canada is also calling on the federal government to change its regulations to force auto manufacturers to put better anti-theft technology in their vehicles. Judy Trinh, CTV News, Ottawa.
In Game 4, Evans with a chance to clinch it off the draw, score! Alex Steeves fires it home.
Meantime, the Leafs hit the ice in Ottawa last night in their second preseason matchup. The Leafs opened the scoring, but the Senators ended up winning 2-1. The Leafs are back on the ice at Scotiabank Arena tomorrow to play the Canadiens.
Meanwhile, the Toronto Blue Jays finish up a 3-game series with the Red Sox tonight.
Just to make a throw. Guerrero drills one to deep left center field. It's going to be off the wall.
Boston won 6-5 in extra innings last night. It was Toronto's 5th straight loss. Kevin Gausman will be on the mound for the Jays this evening.
Bernardeschi now, excellent cross, and there it is!
On the soccer pitch, Toronto FC takes on Vancouver tonight in the final of the Canadian Championship. The Reds have won the annual tournament 8 times, most recently in 2020. Kickoff tonight in Vancouver is set for 10 o'clock.
Just ahead, it was extinct in the wild for decades until now. How a particular bird species has been restored in its natural habitat.
Tonight, Hurricane Helene's perilous path.
I'm worried about the storm surge, the water that could be 4 to 8 feet in my house, and I lose everything.
Gaining strength and on a collision course towards Florida. Later on CTV National News.
Finally tonight, this little bird is the focus of a big celebration in the avian community.
For the first time in 40 years, the Guam kingfisher is back in its natural habitat. The species was previously extinct in the wild, and now 6 of them are living on the Palmyra Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. They're part of a recovery program intended to restore the species. A Kansas zoo was caring for 4 females and 5 males, and 6 of the birds were healthy enough to be released. The others will be as well once they're ready.
Lovely
Beautiful.
colors, very vibrant.
I dig it.
I like it. What's the bird watching
colors?
weather?
I know. Well, it's nice tonight. We're getting kind of that pink sky into the evening. We're looking at another beautiful day tomorrow, but more sunshine. So today, temperature-wise, wasn't the worst. It just wasn't the sunniest of days, obviously, but we're really stepping into the last few days of September in a fantastic way. Lots of sunshine out there, a little cloud cover into the weekend, but really and truly, we kind of make our way into the next couple of days beautifully. We're holding on at or just above seasonal. So if you want to get out and watch the birds, it'll be great. Not much going on in the way of active weather for the rest of our evening. Maybe a light passing shower east end of the city. We're at 24 right now. It feels like 31, and that heat ain't going nowhere as we head in towards the end of the week. So a pretty seasonal forecast as we step in towards the final few days of September.
Already. Wow. Thank you, Jess. That's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachedina at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Natalie Johnson with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a great night.